Hello and welcome to this session where we're going to be looking at one of the myths of field force planning. In this particular session we're going to be looking at the myth that having a bigger sales team means that we have a more powerful sales team. What we're really going to look at here is whether simply by having a bigger sales team means that we'll get a better return on investment, or whether actually having a bigger sales team means that our return on investment is not really as good as it could be. In a recent poll, we were looking at whether people expected their field sales force to increase in size, stay the same, or reduce in size over the next 5 years. Results were pretty evenly split between three options, but for anyone who answered whichever one of these three options they fell within, there's really something to be gained from field force planning. For those that saw their field sales force size increasing, it's really a case of how many extra heads do we really need? Where should we put these extra heads to really get our maximum uplift in efficiency? For those that see their field sales force staying the same size but are being challenged to hit higher revenues, how do they achieve this? Can they be more efficient and achieve higher call rates and deliver higher revenues with the same size team? And for those that are being challenged to do more with a lesser budget, how can we actually achieve today's level of sales, maybe even higher, despite having fewer heads on the road? And is that possible? What we often find is that people come to us with certain symptoms or feedback that they're getting from the field. And these symptoms are such as salespeople saying they're too busy, that they can't get around all their patch and can't get around all their customers. Or it could be customers complaining that they don't see their salesperson as much as they were promised or would like to. It may be that sales figures are falling and there's a desire to do something significant about it. Or it could be that there's a high turnover of staff with an associated high level of recruitment costs and having to get people up to speed on a territory, which again may well lead to reduced revenues in the short term. What they often believe is these symptoms are telling them that their sales team is too small and that all they need to do is to recruit more people. Now, what often happens, or what often the reality is not that their sales team is too small at all. And what they end up doing, if they go down the path of recruiting more heads, or if they went down that path, all they're doing is adding additional costs from the additional headcount, but without the same type of uplift in revenues. And all that's going to mean is their profits will actually get worse rather than get better. What we really need to do is try and identify what the root cause is, which isn't about the sales team being too small. And to do this, what we need to start understanding is what field sales personnel are doing most of the time. Obviously, there's a thing that we employ them to do, which is calling on customers to sell, to negotiate, to demonstrate, to represent the brand, all the good things that a salesperson or a merchandiser might do. But then there's this necessary evil of driving between customers. Now, we accept there is a certain amount of driving that's necessary to get between customers, but why do more than is necessary? All this additional extra driving may be the reason that people feel they're too busy and can't get around their customers. And it's not really surprising. Recent analysis suggests that driving can account for over 40% of a field person's day. That's massive. What we really need to do is try and identify how we can bring that 40% down and really just accept what is the minimum amount of travelling to get around our customer base. So to identify whether we actually need more people or whether our headcount is sufficient, we really need to start looking at how much of these activities our salespeople are doing. In terms of calling, this is quite easy. We probably know all the customers we'd like to call on. We probably know how often we'd like to go and see them. And we probably have some idea of how long a call might last. So that amount of time spent with the customer we can get a very good assessment of. Similarly, we can probably get a very good assessment of the total amount of time available to the salesperson to spend on the road. So we probably know how many weeks they're working in a call cycle. We might know how many days during that call cycle they're off doing other things like sales meetings. We probably know in each of the days they're spending on the road what time they start, what time they finish, and how much time is taken doing things like lunch and administration. All we're missing is the third element, which is the travel time. And this is the one that can be really difficult. What people sometimes do is they'll say, well, I'll just use the amount of driving that I'm doing currently. But it's likely that this driving that they're doing currently is inefficient and way more than necessary. And all that will do is tell us that we need more heads than we actually do. Some people actually say, well, why don't we just attribute a certain amount of time to every call for driving, say 5 or 10 minutes? But the nature of geography and road networks and call clusters make that highly inaccurate too. For example, if we look at the Netherlands here, each of these yellow dots that are on the map at the moment is a customer. And these customers have between 0 and 15 minutes of travelling to get from their own location to the next likely location that a salesperson will call on. So even this very simple example, we're going from almost no travelling to up to 15 minutes of travelling. And we say this is absolutely natural. Clusters of calls differ across the country, road networks differ in quality and speed achievable across a road network. It's completely natural. But in this example, there are some customers where there's even more driving. We're sort of pushing up to 20 minutes of travelling between these customers that we've just added. And there are other customers where we're starting to get over 20 minutes of travelling. And we even have some where there's up to half an hour of travelling. So what we can see in this customer base here, we have those where it can be less than a minute to get to the nearest customer, to those where it's nearly half an hour. To do this without sophisticated, robust road network data and associated software would be impossible. And all we end up doing, if we don't do this and we use one of the other methods of estimating travel time, all we're doing is estimating headcount. And effectively, every time we estimate headcount, we're going to be either not having enough heads so we can't get around our customers, which obviously would then mean we need more people, or if we get it wrong the other way, we're just effectively bringing extra costs into the business that we don't need. Now, as we say, this is a very sensitive balancing act in terms of travelling time. In this example that we've got here, CACI software has calculated how much travelling is actually necessary, and we've used this to identify that we actually need 36 heads in this particular field sales team. If this travel time had been underestimated using other methods, we would have found that we have too few heads in the team, and in this example we would actually have needed to recruit more people into our sales team. This is fairly uncommon. What is far more common is to see people overestimating it. And again, it's maybe because they're using current inefficient road network statistics and travelling figures to base their figures on. And in this example, we actually have more people than we require. And again, just being slightly off here means we can actually require 4 more heads, or feel we need 4 more heads than we actually do, with all the associated recruitment costs that has. So in terms of when we're thinking about whether we need a bigger sales team, we need to try and understand what is the actual problem. What we can actually see in this example is that 36 territories that have efficient structures and efficient journey plans will achieve at least as much as 40 territories that are operating in an inefficient manner. What we generally need, rather than increasing headcount, is to reduce travelling by having these efficient territory structures and journey plans. So what we really need to do in the first instance is try and find ways, using sophisticated software, ways of getting this travel down to an absolute minimum, so that when we do add headcount, each additional head, we're getting the most for our investment in it. So the reality is not that we need a bigger sales team to be more powerful, but we need a more efficient sales team to be powerful.